We will start this session. We had some changes in organization, so we are lucky to have Dr. Olivia Nicoletti online. I don't know exactly where do you see us? What do you see from us?
I only see the screen with my face.
That's a good start. That's a good start. So we have here very enthusiastic people ready to listen to you. I suggest that actually you just introduce yourself, because I know that when a moderator presents somebody, especially somebody who's there, he always uses the wrong word, so you will be probably the best one to emphasize about your specificities and your interest in the topic of today. So this is a topic very important for different countries, and I think especially here we are very happy to learn about how to deal with sustainability in our KTT world. Everybody's talking about sustainability, green venture, etc. The reality behind the words might be quite different according to different countries. And I would be personally very happy also to learn about the existing initiatives and, again, the reality behind the words. So it's quite fashionable to talk about this. But at the end of the day, how much is sustainability really taken into account, and what is the balance between these issues and, again, money, economical value? And so are we really, as tax transfer people, in charge? Are we in a position also to make changes and to act during the selection of projects and during the investment phase also in those projects? So I hope this is what we are going to hear today from our speakers. I think so. And then, of course, we will have questions and answer. I suggest also that after each presentation, we go into questions with the audience. That will be probably more appropriate. So please, Olivia, the floor is yours. So you don't see me, but I'm smiling actually. So please go on, and we are happy to learn about your background and your project, and then we will listen to your presentation.
Absolutely, thank you so much. I hope you guys can hear me. If not, do say so. I'd like to introduce myself first of all. I'm Dr. Olivia Nicoletti. I was a tech transfer professional, so I was really looking forward to actually be there and reconnect with the tech transfer ecosystem, because I really do value technology transfer as a really key element to translate, especially deep tech initiatives into commercialization. So I've now transformed into an investor, so I worked in venture capital, but I do retain very much a technology transfer approach. I worked in early stage mostly and in deep tech. I'll tell you more, but I just wanted to apologize for not being there. I was really looking forward to be there, but I had a family emergency. My dad had to have emergency surgery a couple of days ago, so it was really the day before I had to leave, and it wasn't really possible for me to be there. This being said, I think I'm here to sort of be a spokesperson for what venture capital is doing and it's looking at when it comes to sustainability. I am currently fundraising for what we call an institutional fund. So it's an early stage deep tech fund, and normally institutional fund sizes that do early stage, so pre-seed and seed, it's around the 50 to 70 million mark. That's to be able to do first and second checks and to do follow-ons in the further rounds. And they normally have a sort of 10, 12 years lifetime. So I'm telling you things that you know. When we started building our proposition, we wanted really to put sustainability at the center, as many people, many of you know, it's a really important topic currently, and will be probably for the foreseeable future, unless we really somehow miraculously fix climate change. And because of my background and because of my work in deep tech, the key has always been what are going to be the future technologies that are going to impact climate change significantly. What we focused on was mostly computation and computational power in particular. especially because artificial intelligence is really taking a lot of space in our technological lives, which means that the future will definitely be more energy intensive. We will need a lot more computational and data storage capabilities. And in a world that is already fairly drained energetically. So what our funds look at the moment is any sort of solution that will make the artificial intelligence technology stack more efficient in terms of energy, in terms of water, in terms of any resource, natural resources it uses. And we look at the entire technological stack, which is normally not something that funds do. So we go from the very, very deep chip designs and new materials for chips, all the way up to algorithms that make data handling more efficient, so you use actually less computing power, which means you use less energy ultimately. It's an interesting time to fundraise for a fund in sustainability, and I really would like to make this point because sustainability in many of its I think interpretations like clean tech or carbon capture, like many of its aspects, has been at the forefront of venture capital for at least the last 5 years. And I'm sorry to say, but venture capital does work, unfortunately, on many buzzwords in what's fashionable. And in this particular social political time, from the last probably few months to a year, the attention has really shifted, especially since Trump has been elected, to defense and to technology that are defense related. Because we're in fundraising, we see this very evidently. We're speaking to the European Investment Fund, which is going to be one of our cornerstone investors. And they told us the very, to me, boring information that the money that was allocated to the European Investment Fund for new venture capital funds has been currently frozen to be redirected to defense. This doesn't mean that they are not going to get more money. The European Union is very focused on innovation, and it knows that also for the same social political reasons, it needs to focus on technological independence, or as much as independence as possible, and in energy independence. But it is interesting that this shift has been going on for a while, and we have now evidence from the European Investment Fund that this is really happening. And so there will be definitely some changes in focus. And I'm sure that some of the funds that kind of follow the money than more following their values will shift their focus to something that is defense related. But nonetheless, we will definitely keep on doing something sustainability related. This is our focus and will always be. But it's just, I think, wanting to bring a more general experience in venture capital. This is what's really happening, especially in Europe. I can't speak for what's happening in Asia or in the US market. This is more or less what my experience. I don't know if anybody has any questions. I would be really open.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Olivia. Yeah, we are going to take some questions after this brief presentation. So it was really a very short presentation. So you didn't even say that you were working for Haystack Ventures and so on. So
you can see the slides. I don't know if you wanted me to present the slides or someone was presenting the slides.
Sorry. Oh, the slides? Oh, okay, no. Okay. No, but you can find all the details on the website with Olivia background. Considering what was presented already by now, any questions in the room? Any questions about this shift? You mentioned a shift actually in the attitude. So Who's actually in the room has been working with VCs and ventures? Yeah, of course. Apart from no, not many people. Yeah, okay. And have you got some experience about these changes, this shift in approaches? What are your yes, Gabriel? Yeah. Do we have another mic, maybe? Yes, please. If you could just introduce
Yeah. My name is Rolf Hecker. I'm the head of the Technology Transfer Office, the University of Tübingen in Germany. And well, I would say I haven't seen that, but very specific, the most venture funds we have in contact with have a focus on the medical, either medical tech or the health markets, and we have not seen a shift in focus there, because they are focused on these funds, and the either family offices or other investors who financed the fund. They have before filled the fund, and therefore the monies have a specific purpose for investment, and therefore we have not seen that shift. But this may be true, and I can't comment on that, in funds who have a more broader scope. Yeah, and unfortunately also we have seen this. We have seen that not that much. Funds with a more technological focus, yeah, all these inventions are much more difficult to finance, yeah, and so they are. For example, we had an invention. Sorry for coming into talking here. It was an invention, particular what you said interests you, how you make transistor in the whole wafer setup in a way that it saves 2/3 of the energy being needed. Yeah. And we could not get this. I mean, it was patented, and we could not get this marketed. So we, at some point, stopped working with that because it was no interest. Yeah.
What was the reason why you couldn't get them? Could you identify the reasons why?
I'm not quite sure. I mean, companies, yeah. I mean, we didn't, the inventors were not willing to found a company, and actually with such a technical detail, it really connects directly to chip design. Mm-hmm. And because this is also, in a sense, a long-term industry who has certain setups before, and changing the way how they PNP, how they organize stuff, it needs somehow such a change in other technology on there that they were not willing to think about this solution, how to really save a lot. Yeah, I mean, it is very simple. It was like, the switch, and somehow it was making the switch that you switch less and therefore save. Sorry for being so unprecise in description, but I'm just bringing an example where we had major problems getting a green invention anywhere. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thanks a lot, Rolf. Yeah, please, Olivia, if you want to react to this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I totally understand and feel your pain. There has been, I think, a few reasons why these kind of technologies have quite a big difficulty in finding translation from university. I think most reasons, like there are some reasons that are sort of like due to this particular time, and some reasons that are sort of infrastructural for how, the supply chain of capital for translation. So I think if we're talking about the last probably 4 years, so since 2022, 2023, there has been a significant, I would say, lack of capital expenditure in venture capital, and pretty much, I would say, a waterfalling, freezing of capital. And that has been mostly due to the war between Russia and Ukraine, the supply of energy to the European Union, and then, instability more and more, and now, with the Trump administration. And this has meant at the very beginning of this cycle, so in 2023, I would say, in Europe, The venture capital were very attentive with their spending. They were not taking risks, which is really not what they should be doing because they're sort of early stage founder, most of them. And they were keeping their cash for the fairly secure investments, meaning the startups that are slightly later stage or that are doing things that are slightly less risky and more sure that would grow in the way a venture capital expects them to grow. And this means that a lot of things that are higher risk and possibly higher reward, but or that have more ears to translation, or for which the market is still not very well identified, think quantum computing, for example, didn't get funded, really struggled. And after a couple of years of this, now we're seeing funds struggling to fundraise, especially funds that are focused on deep tech and early stage because they are more risky. So there is really a problem in the supply chain going up due to this sort of, I guess, more conservative way of handling cash, pretty much. There is an intrinsic also problem in, I think, funding deeper level of research when it comes to private money, so venture capital, high net worth individuals, etc. And especially, as you were noticing, chip, core level microelectronics chips, very, very deep in the technology stack. For many reasons, mostly due to, I think, the many years that it's needed to be able to integrate them in devices. And this has been true for many other technologies. And sometimes venture capitalists might see this as a problem, especially because I'm sure you know, but venture capitalists have 10, 12, 13 years of a lifetime, and then they have to sort of liquidate their assets. So if a technology doesn't have that time span to grow, then a fund would typically say no, especially if they're not in the first year of investing, so the fourth year or fifth year, then they have very little time to bring an investment to fruition. And so for some technologies, venture capital timings doesn't align very well with growth, and this is an intrinsic problem, and especially when it comes to funds like mine that, where what is called early, early managers, first-time managers, you don't know if you're gonna have a second fund because you can follow on with the second fund or something that you've invested, but if you're not an established fund, it's really a question mark because it really does depend on how you perform.
Your fund duration was?
My fund duration is a standard VC fund, so it's a 10 years plus
10 years, okay.
With a 2 years or 3 years grace period. We are in our year one, but so we still have plenty of time. But it is a question of we will need to start fundraising for Fund 2 in 3 years time, 4 years time maximum. And by then we need to demonstrate that we've done good investments, which will be based on the valuations that investment have at the time. But we will not have probably realized any of our investments. So
yeah, in such a short term, yeah. Yeah, I will have afterwards a question about the recruitment that you conduct in these funds. But we have another question first.
Yes.
Yes.
Is
And
it-
then, yeah.
yeah.
First one, Peter. Please. EIT.
Okay, Peter, EIT Food, indeed. You were mentioning that you used to be a knowledge transfer professional, and I'm asking if you go back to that transition period, what was the thing that surprised you most, or your biggest realization when stepping into the VC space?
Oh, that's a difficult question. So I used to work at Cambridge Enterprise. I used to be in the technology transfer team and the physical science team under Malcolm Grimshaw. There's probably a few people that remember him. I had the luck of having an experience in their seed funds team while I was there. but it's only there for some time. And that was my first experience of seeing what was happening after we sort of, let's go venture build a spin out. And I really wanted to know what happened next. I think the biggest realization is, and I know I'm saying this to a group of tech transfer professionals, is that actually technology transfer and licensing is significantly more difficult than investment. Because it's a much longer process, much more complex, and it's very much about, finding a partner, an industrial partner that is willing to, let's say, walk the walk with you to co-build a technology. Whereas when you build a company, I'm not saying it's easy to build good companies, and you invest in them, a lot of this translational work has been done, sometimes by you, sometimes by other people. And it's slightly easier generally because people are a lot more focused and they have most of the times an idea of what are the products that they're trying to develop. Pivoting is still very much a reality. But I have to say, not many people come from technology transfer. There are a few people, like for example in Cambridge Enterprise, Kristen Martin, who's the head of state funds, is now, used to be a technology transfer professional, is now the head of their investment fund. But it's a really useful background to have, and personally, I value it very close to someone that has a startup experience, because you've seen a lot of the struggles of finding the right market application, finding the right partner, understanding how difficult it is to secure proof of concept and early revenues, let's say, if necessary. So it's actually been probably not about venture capital, but more about how much I value the background in tech transfer.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Olivia. I think this is really interesting because I met during this conference many people thinking about the future and what should I do afterwards. Will I be a knowledge transfer and tech transfer officer forever? And so you are recruiting right now, Olivia? That's what okay.
Very junior people, though. I don't know if you can afford people that have a lot of experience, but I do value it. Especially if done in ecosystems that offer a lot of stimulation. Like Cambridge, a lot of things are happening, and there is a lot of know-how. So you're bound to actually, even as in the first few years, to really see a lot of things compared to, for example, the Italian system.
Thank you. We got two other questions. I saw also Bretje was asking also for the mic afterwards, but that's fine. Yes,
I have a question, or a takeaway. My name is
please
Olivier.
introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Olivier van Raamdonk. I'm a managing partner of Cresco, a law firm focused on innovation and technology, and also involved in quite a lot VC deals. And what I see, it's correct what you say. In the deep tech ventures are really struggling in getting financing. I think they're not struggling with getting seed financing. There's still appetite to invest in deep tech, and there is still a lot of cash to be activated in seed financing. But what strikes me the most is that they're not able to close follow-up investments or Series A investments. And I think looking at it from a European perspective, that is really a lack in the ecosystem, because if you talk with US investors or even UK investors, they tap into deep tech investments in a seed round with the ambition or even the guarantee that they will follow on in a Series A investment round, even if the development is slower than compared to other ventures in life science or software. And I think that is the big issue we need to tackle in today's VC world. That European investors, in my opinion, should, from the start, in seed investments, already reflect on who's gonna who are we gonna onboard in these Series A rounds or these biggest rounds? Because there's no plans at all. But I would love to hear your take on that.
Absolutely. I think what you're observing is right. I think it slightly depends on the ecosystem you're in Europe. Europe is not all the same. I would say probably if you're in France, Switzerland, Germany, the Netherlands, probably the Nordics. This would be true. It's not very true, I can assure you, for Italy. Seed funds, also for deep tech, it's quite difficult. But yeah, there is definitely a lack. So it's interesting to see how the evolutions of ecosystem is kind of reflected in what you're saying. If you look at the UK, what most of the ecosystem is concerned with is sort of growth money. I don't mean Series A money, I mean like Series C, Series D. How do we make this company unicorns? Which is, you know, one step behind Silicon Valley. And in Europe, we're sort of lacking one step behind, which is we need growth money to go from like seed to Series A. And that is just, I think, the natural evolution of ecosystems. I think if you're born in a more developed ecosystem, you're better off. I would say probably Germany and France and Switzerland are your best bets, if not the UK, obviously. But it is an intrinsic problem, and it's not so obvious how to feel it, like how to solve it, because the money, most of the money in venture capital, I would say, come from the European Union, ultimately, and from local governments. So there is the British Business Bank in the UK, there is Cassa Depositi e Prestiti in Italy, like government money that then sort of gets waterfall down in many ways in innovation, some of which goes to venture capital. Some ecosystems, notably, have other potential investors in venture capital, like pension funds or foundations, or sometimes significantly high net worth individuals. But this type of investors have to recognize that that type of asset is valuable, and so investing in slightly later stage and growth is more the thing to do than early stage. And it's, I think, a cultural shift more than anything. But it takes time. Like, for example, if you take Italy, the law that allowed pension funds and kind of forced even pension funds to allocate part of their investments in venture capital came out, I think, last year or this year, and it's going to be implemented after the summer. So before that, pension funds weren't even investing in venture capital. So literally the only LPs you could have that had significant capital in Italy were the equivalent of the British Business Bank in Italy, Cassa Depositi e Prestiti, and the European Investment Fund, which is just two, literally. And you can't build, you know, a Series A plus fund on only those, because Series A plus fund means you need $250 million at least, like 250 million, which are not easy money to find if you have very limited amount of LPs, and most of which do not invest that kind of money in funds.
Okay, thanks a lot, Olivia, for this answer. I suggest we take a third and last question for this presentation, and then we will skip to the following presentations. Brechtje, please.
Yeah, hi, Brechtje Verenigor. I work for Wageningen University and Research. We create a lot of spin-offs in the green tech domain or in the sustainability domain. And we were lucky that throughout the years we created a network of VCs that are investing in this domain. So I'm happy to share that I see an increase in investment funds interested in green tech. However, I also see that the experience that we have with our VCs is that a runway for a fund of 10 to 12 years is really little for green tech. There is low margins, there is a lot of capex involved, usually pilot plans. So you need 8 to 9 years to break even. We also see that a lot of bridge funds are necessary to go from the seed stage to the pre-seed, or from pre-seed to seed, or seed to Series A. So I was wondering if this is happening. We are looking more into the impact investors or the funds that keep on running instead of the normal VCs. And you have a fund which has a 12-year running period. How do you see progressing deep tech innovations in this field as of year 4 or 5? That's
So, I mean, it's a complex answer, and partly it doesn't depend on me, because so I think we need to make a step back and kind of like understand how people raise funds and what liberties they can have in structuring a different timeline. So evergreen funds are very rare and very difficult to establish. They normally come from family offices mostly, like high net worth individuals and family. They have a particular interest in oftentimes sustainability. And they want to dedicate part of their money and part of the cash that they have to this. And for them, it's easy to replenish the pot over time with returns or wherever their money comes from. When you have a financial fund that is set up to invest in return, investors tend to want to have a timeline for return. So historically, nothing to do with me, like this way before I ever started, like probably we were ever even born, venture capital has had a 10-year timeline. There has been the introduction of what is called the grace period, which means you have an extension on the participations you have of 2 or 3 years. But it is true that the timeline is absolutely not helping when it comes to deep tech deals and green tech. So new technology that has to, reach a certain TRL and then have proof of concept and then have, some market traction, and it just doesn't, it's not harmonized in any way. There isn't very much, someone that does venture capital can do. There are some funds that have managed to negotiate with their LPs a longer timeline. I used to work for one of them. So ACF Investors, for example, in the UK, has a 22 years timeline, which has been extended, I think, to 24, 25. So they have a significant time to hold their participation and to make them grow and not to have to, pull out of the shareholding. But it is difficult. So normally what funds do when they have this kind of timeline, which most funds have, is that they invest a lot in their first 2 or 3 years, and then a little bit in the 4th and 5th. But they're very strategic in choosing the investments that need more time to mature at the very beginning. And then for something like my fund, for example, will probably invest in the 4th and 5th in more software-related or algorithmic-related things rather than hardware. So hardware is going to be significantly at the beginning. And this is how you try to sort of trick the system in having as much time as you can. But it is very difficult to negotiate a longer timeline. What you can do, and most funds do, is that you fundraise for a second fund that starts around your year 5 or year 6 of the first fund, and then you move the participation. You basically buy the participations with the new fund to liquidate the old fund. And in this way, your holding period gets extended over a further 5 years. But it is not, all the investors in the first fund have to agree that this is okay with them. So it's not always doable, that's what I mean. And you have to be able to raise a second fund, which is also non-obvious and current.
Thanks a lot, Olivia, for these very inspiring answers. I suggest we keep other questions for Olivia at the end of the presentation, so we have the time. Please, Imants, Martinsons, welcome. Do you want to sit there, or what do you want to sit for
I'll probably stand. Yes. Olivia, it was true pleasure to listen to you, such an eloquent speaker, and it really resonated to me a lot, and then sometimes parts really spoke to my soul. I have the honor to be the next speaker for you today here. My name is Imants Martinsons. I'm from Latvia, and it's a true joy and honor to be here. I must admit I learned a lot during these days. It's knowledge transfer, technology transfer is in this sense not my world, not my usual emploi, and I really did have a chance to learn a lot. And but quickly, who am I and what do I do, and maybe why I was invited to speak also here today. I'm a cluster manager in Latvia. So how I put it, usually it's I'm a multiplier because different ecosystems, especially if we take the Baltics and compare it to Nordics or Central Europe, that have different capacity, and you need those multipliers into ecosystem to make the most out of the resources that you have. And that's one thing that the cluster does. Main focus is SMEs, startups, but there is also a certain degree of university input that is important, and where there's a connection of collaboration between those two. And then we have corporates as well, of course. So there is this link between the universities, and I'll try to touch upon that as well. Another hat that I wear is Cleantech for Baltics. So it's a think tank on pan-Baltic level to accelerate funding, both public and private, for clean tech, green tech, innovation in the region, to establish this powerhouse, how we like to call it, because the potential is there. So, and also policy advocacy, because that's an important part as well, and you can't live without that. And the third hat, just briefly, I'm also a startup counselor for the Chamber of Commerce in Latvia, with the focus on policy development for startups, and this is also interlinks with what you do as well, for positive policy development, that we have those startups, they're created more, spin-off creation out of universities as well. And fun fact, unrelated, I was last week approached just because of this, because there's a strong lack in positive policy to create startup spin-offs in Latvia currently. And completely unrelated, I was asked to support this, and with the things I learned here, I'll definitely try to do that. Anyhow, what we do, we have a broad focus in the cluster with topics that we try to work with. It's digital and green. It's oftentimes interlinked, and when it's 5G, startup ecosystem support, green campus, government policy, piloting, and fundraising. Those all important parts that we try to tackle and help the companies to work with. And this is our main focus, of course, the industry that we work with. And then we have R&D, universities, of course, public sector, and the society. So it's the quadruple helix, and we try to really accelerate it within the Latvian ecosystem. And I'll come to some concrete examples as well after. And with our network, so we have Riga Tech University, we work with Latvia University, other institutes, and of course then we have the other side, the corporates, which are not that many in Latvia, in the Baltics, so the capacity is much smaller, but we have this link to them as well, so we integrate them in our daily work. And the opportunities that we enable, usually what the cluster does in this context, this consortium building for innovation projects, sandbox opportunities to validate technology, proof of concept. We try to strengthen the startup scene, the ecosystem. It's one of the best ranking in the world, in the Baltics actually, so this is per capita the region where it's leading worldwide. and we do technology scouting as well, and there's going to be an interesting example what I wanted to share as well. Yeah, and usually it's those guys. We're the multiplier with funding, support, network, and partnerships and projects, and then we help commercialization. So that's the B2B SaaS projects and everything, where there's no deep tech per se. So it's really, as I call it, those cash projects, fast implementation, scalable projects, B2B models, subscription-based models, that's there. And then we have the technology transfer, which is, as we just heard by Olivia, it's a much longer process. It's deep tech, it's CapEx intensive. You have to have the proof of concept, and it takes much more. And to touch really briefly of the things we discussed before and heard from Olivia on venture capital. I was in Dubai last week and at a venture event, and I heard it from many people that there is a clear shift in venture capital focus as well, also highly because of the fast development of AI and computing technologies, and they're shifting their focus strongly, and even funds that were previously technology agnostic, they gonna refocus on three main pillars where they're gonna focus their investments, because they won't be affected by leapfrog advancements through AI and etc. So this is gonna be health. There's a strong focus for venture capital still on health. That's not going to be impacted in that sense. Agri-tech, food, so we'll still have to eat, even if there's AI doing many things. We will need the food and everything. And the third is energy. So that's how venture capital representatives, many of them told me this, we're still going to focus on this, whatever happens, but the other, we don't know. That's one thing I wanted to stress as well. And coming back to the examples, so green tech, it's CapEx intensive, it's deep tech, it takes many years to develop. You have to have the collaboration between the industry. You just can't move out the technology really fast. And we have those innovation partnerships that we try to foster, because as I also discovered yesterday, there's capacity that you have as well, right? You can't do everything. You have your main duties, and you can't know everyone in the ecosystem and then focus on a funding procurement for the projects, for the development, for the technologies. And that's something that we do, that's basically what we love to do, to connect those innovators, those stakeholders, that those projects come together easily and much faster, and you can advance the technology development. And we usually approached by different kind of companies who say, we want to collaborate with the university, we want them part of our projects, we need this, and if we know that who's working, who has this in their portfolio, we connect them, and projects are created to a great extent and very fast and with quick inputs. And that's what we love to do when things happen, and they happen without pushing great effort when it comes naturally. That's how we like to operate, and many of those are unfortunately or fortunately, how to put it, AI focused now. It's super hot space, but as mentioned before, venture capital is gonna still focus on those three areas before. And speaking of the areas and the reshift on funding, dual tech is really important now, for how it was also mentioned before, and it's also still in energy. And green tech, we discovered that many funds shifted. That's really true, but it's a sense of how you position it, because energy, we're gonna move out of green tech energy. No. We need defense, but energy is defense. Energy resilience is a super hot topic. Like Ukraine, how they innovate and rebuild their energy infrastructure. It's incredible how they do it, and that's energy resilience, and there's still focus there. So it's really a sense of perception, how we position our technology, and where we put out the main focus. That's another part. And one more thing I wanted to put out there is innovation procurement. And that's a topic we've been working in the ecosystem as well. We've been approached by governments, policy stakeholders, by corporates who are state-owned, and innovation procurement is an important topic for them. And then we have universities as well with technology. And I do believe that this is really an area that has great potential, that has not been tapped in before, because at least I know for the Baltics that in Latvia there's one innovation procurement case. In Estonia I think it's 0, and in Lithuania I know there's people in Lithuania here in the audience, it's 2 or 3. So it's very little. The Commission is also pushing for this, and there's super high potential for technology and tech transfer within innovation procurement, because I don't know how familiar you are with the procedure, but it sets out that you start with several providers with early stage technology, who is then who the procurer, state-owned company with high budget potential, then can procure from many providers, and it eliminates in the process 1 or 2, stays with the one with most potential, and it's really great instrument to push and develop new technologies, and it's really unused because it's difficult to do and people avoid it because of that. But at least for the Baltics, as we see it, it has great potential, and maybe there's some experience in the room with that as well. Happy to hear it on that as well. I think I did the fast run through. Happy to hear any questions if there are.
I suggest we, as you show that the ecosystem is very important, and of course the universities are very important part. I suggest we skip the question for now. We listen to the presentation by our host from the Vilnius University, and then we can gather the questions for the both classroom and the university. You agree with that?
Sure.
So it's thanks a lot, and you can stay on stage actually if you wish. It's quite awkward, but you could try. Yeah. I would come with you, you know. So it's my great pleasure to welcome the director. Sorry, yeah. Oh, that's for you. Yeah, sorry. The director for research and innovation at the University of Vilnius, Vida Lapinskaité. I hope. Yeah. Oh, thanks a lot. And so the floor is yours, and then we gather the questions.
So, hello everyone. As I was presented, I am Director for Research and Innovation from the Vilnius University, and for clusters and venture capitalists to have someone to work with. So we need a higher education sector, which helps to create people who are creative, thinking out of box, and creating those innovation startups and ideas. So just a quick glimpse at our university. We're quite old, almost 450 years, and we are the largest in Lithuania, and the country, as you see, is not very big, but we have faculties in 3 major cities. And those small dots are practical bases, astronomy observatory outside in another regions. So we cover quite a lot in the country. 23,000 students, 3,000 academic staff, so quite a big community to work with. And Actually, we are comprehensive university, so we have everything. For a long time, I was saying everything except arts, but we have already a little bit of arts as well now. So, interdisciplinary approach is on our strategic agenda all the time. And this one, we are trying to connect all our 15 faculties or almost 200 research groups working on different topics. Quite a lot of patent and patent applications, as TTOs are here, so you might think it's quite a high numbers, but also it's due to the ecosystem push as a result for projects and so on. So it's also one of the factors which increase the numbers. Startup companies, a small number might be, but actually these are companies which working on IP created at university and which is licensed to them. So it's not student companies or mainly PhDs and researchers. 2 science park and incubators, so quite an ecosystem in itself in the university. Before making people sustainable, green, and thinking like that, you must be yourself green and sustainable as much as possible. So university had quite a lot initiative and activities, but for as big institution we also need papers. So we didn't have a document or plans for sustainability or Green Deal. So recently we made a project which is under discussions. So, and it covers 4 major blocks: studies, research, community, and partnerships, and selected SDG goals which are most in the line with our agendas and research. And in each activity lines, we actually grouped everything what we are doing and added a sustainability aspect to the activities we are doing. So for example, if we had a call for innovation fund, we issued a special call for Green Deal or sustainable solutions. So introducing these elements to study programs as modules or single study programs, creating special partnerships and making accessibility to studies, transferable skills, of course, training and competence building, more interdisciplinary research and seeing the same topic from different angles, partnerships, expertise, and of course, not forgetting ethical aspects of all of these activities, integration, well-being, and working with the ecosystem, political, business, and so on. And from Green Deal, yes, it's our campus, so if not training, you can try to go there because it's in Vilnius. So climate neutral university, it's reduction of energy consumption, waste reduction, so green spaces in the university territory and involving and leadership in national activities. So as an examples of what we do. So it's a document on the discussion, but there are certain things what we already achieved, or maybe some examples of activities that universities can use to promote sustainability and green. So we didn't have documents, but what we did already, we're the first large organization in Lithuania which is using only green electricity. If we were at our university, I would say it's university ghost, but it's maybe the hotel has its ghost as well. So what second, in 22, we received a Sustainable Development Impact Award. So for publications and activities, and from 23, all agreements, employment agreements are signed only electronically. We are struggling a bit, especially when employing foreign researchers who don't have electronic signatures at the local base, but we already have some number ones or doing this. And starting from smaller initiatives. Part of the initiatives I will present are funded by university, some of by external funding issues. So sustainable solutions pre-accelerator. There are people in the audience who are running it, actually. So target audience students, all cycles, so from first to the PhDs. 8 weeks of trainings, lectures, mentorship, team building. So as you can see, it's on site. So make people to talk in between and to make connections for the future. And of course, demo day with pitch. So up to date, we had 2 cohorts, and it's voluntary. Students sign up for that, and more than 50 participants with 13 ideas. And as you can see, it's foreign external funding, and students are not going easy. So we are talking about sorting medical waste, production of fabrics from hemp, fiber, and so on. Oh, I think that's not the last version of my slides, actually. Oops. So, okay, so I will talk maybe without so we have an internal science research promotion fund based on internal funding issues. And here it's a simulation of a real live proposal submission process. For example, on national level, we have requirement that in application the person has to appear only one time, and here we also simulate that. It's usually for students and young PhD doctors. So I'm from Department for Research and Innovation, so I'm more research side, so with innovation quite active. So the first one, actually, what I wanted to present is our initiative of our students and students representation. It's a sustainability and ambassadors networks, which they organize themselves and organize events, organize sustainability festival with games and bread, so something to eat, something to play, and something to promote. So students are doing themselves lectures, discussions, workshops, and so on. Then this pre-accelerator, so we started last year, and 53 students, and science promotion fund. That's why I remembered. So it's up to 20 teams per year, so quite a lot in number. One year we received almost 100 applications. So it's really, really quite a lot of them. And in 25, well, we added additional points with the teams in SDGs and Green Deal. And it's application of machine learning, genetic research, family policy dynamics. And here are some results already. So not at once we go to the tech transfer. First, some maybe research results, science article with thank you for our fund, some postdoctoral fellowship or research groups project. And that last one was Earth. Actually, it was led by a student from master degrees in cartography. So how from the children's drawings you can see their thoughts on Green Deal, on current topics, and so on. Then we have Innovation Fund, quite a lot of funds, and it's already for a proof of concept activities from tier 3 and to go up a bit higher and to be more presentable for licensing or for startup. Lump sum of 20,000, 18 months. So focus in 25 also SDG. So we had running these 2 funds, but actually added SDG or Green Deal factors at this year. And there is an internal IP management and investment committee. So from governments, from finance, from our office, and researchers who evaluate. There is the teams pitching the results, we are getting questions, and then doing something. So example, vision system, organized systems, and so on. So quite complicated, but sometimes people just need a little push to think about applicability. Postdoctoral fellowships, internal call. So internal call is also internally organized, and we have two-way selection process. First, we select research topics from the faculties. They say why it's important and what we want to do. And then selected topics make open international calls for postdocs. So up to 5 positions for 25 months. And of course, we this year already started with sustainability activities. So we quite attract very capable young people. At least 50% of them already receive an external grant, so we're cutting off this one and going one from Marie Curie's to local postdocs. Of course, here we have sometimes problems, and not with number of applicants, but with running applicants, because they received some more preferable position in the home country or something like that. So I've calculated if one year we selected 4 postdocs, so half of them attract external funding, which exceeded already what we spent on them, all of them. And recently we made also our faculties to vote with money. So we are here giving on central level 75%, and 25% comes from the faculty funds. So we are choosing more strategically what we need. Centers of excellence. Here is external funding because money quite high, 16 million for 4 years. And here we had quite an interesting selection process, because the ministry said for centers of excellence, 1 million has to bring certain number of KPIs, but you have to select where to invest. So we had an internal call. Nice thing it was in July and August. So those from universities know what that means. It's quite a low season for us. And there were happy and not so happy people, because during internal selections, some of them came with interdisciplinary, interfaculty ideas, some not. So we, on the central level, made them to discuss between applications and to correct and integrate issues. So in a 1.5 year, we already have 5 ERC grants. So I don't know if we selected centers so good, or just some things were already in the pipeline. One of the ERCs is proof of concept, so it's already knowledge transfer area. 19 new researchers, 29 postdocs and PhDs. So that would be everything from me.
I suggest we stay on stage now to take the questions. We probably have still another 10 minutes to go. 10-15 minutes to go for the questions. What struck me in your presentation is that you present very, I would say, classical development within universities with proof of concept, and so in the selection process, I understand you give additional points. I think this is what you said, yeah. So are we talking about just putting a sort of bit of color, a bit of painting about SDG and environment and so on and sustainability, or do you consider really creating new projects based on sustainability? Do you see what I mean?
Actually, we are doing both, and additional points. And actually, sometimes even the project, if claims that it's green or sustainable, we do not give points, because they write that it's sustainable, but it's nothing sustainable in it at all. So So both ways.
Okay. And from the cluster point of view, because the name of the cluster is about green, okay? So do you really have a process internally to start from this aspect, or is that something you add afterwards on existing projects?
So the green, is it working? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's working. So the green is the main focus of the cluster because you can be active in different areas, and we focus our energy on green technologies, which is then energy, transport, materials, green resources, manufacturing. That's the main focus where we have expertise, where we have a network, and where we can help the most and the best. And then digital is, of course, horizontal in all of that. And we usually work with this area because that's where we have the expertise, that's where we have the network. And if somebody reaches out from the industry side, we have the network with universities, with other clusters. There's a whole lot of them where we can collaborate and then set something up easily. So it's not, that doesn't take that much of an effort, right? So that's the only reason why. And clusters are also focused. In Latvia, there's approximately 10 clusters. So it's bioeconomy, green tech, food as well, and etc. And that's the case all over. And all of them have their cluster projects where they have the funding to engage also with R&D universities and help them move and set up projects, because the cluster should have all the exposure and expertise of the industry, so it's the link in between. And if there is a healthy communication and people know about the other and know what to do, so that's the easy way. So we have a new technology in this area. Do you see a potential in your network with the corporates where we could move and then start to jointly doing something and quickly find a commercial application for it, right? And that's where the cluster can really work. And our biggest network at the moment EU-wide is transport and mobility, I would say. Big shift towards hydrogen technology as well. For instance, in Latvia, because of that's 3 years ago, the big pull from the industry, we established a hydrogen alliance. We have 40 stakeholders nationally who have an interest, a beef in the game related to hydrogen at one table with the universities. So we bring them in a room like this, and everyone who has and wants to set up a project is there. So they meet, they don't have to look, waste time. The decision makers, the stakeholders are there.
Okay, thanks. Any questions from the audience to any of our speaker, including our faraway speaker? Not so far away, but for Olivia as well. Any questions? Yes, please.
Well, I have several, but I'm only asking one first. I enjoyed really the incubation work with students, because we have done in other areas the same. In health, for example, and my experience is that the students were always very inventive, and often they had ideas, reorganizes processes. For example, in your opinion, I can imagine they reorganize things how they are done before in a way that's more greener or more sustainable. And my question to that is really that my experience is also the ideas were always very good. It was a major problem to actually put them anywhere, even in their own organization, into action. So basically, there is always with the students huge enthusiasm for making things better, but the organizations to implement them have very high resistance in actually doing anything. So what is your experience in some of the outcomes you achieved there? So is this, in a sense, I'm asking for transfer, yeah? I mean, does does this really have an effect in the end? And is it transferred and put into action?
So actually, green tech pre-accelerator, it's too early to say. But for example, we organize students' teams to participate in international competitions. One of such teams created a company, Biomatter Designs, and they attracted how much, colleagues, remind me? 6 million for development of a project, so after a few years. So this is working with students can get results, so quite a good running company.
If I may add on top of that, we do implement a similar activity with one of the universities in Latvia, and our main job there is really to bring the industry. They have their experts participation and also decision makers at the event there, with the main focus that if there are the best or most promising approaches identified, that they actually commit to do it, to try it, and that's a very important point, that it's not just for show, but that there is the willingness and the commitment really then to work with that. Otherwise it's just doing something for doing's sake, right?
Thanks a lot. Other questions from the audience? You had other questions, Rolf. Yeah? No? Yeah. Please. Still 10 minutes before the break.
Sorry, I don't want to conquer this here. The question, we have some groups they're trying to improve processes with the most extreme idea, power to protein, for example. And so where they were trying to develop more environmental friendly processes, but often what they were using behind is published. So they're actually combining knowledge in new combinations, which is more, in the end, maybe more environmental friendly and uses less resources and so on. But we have problems to transfer this because there is no specific intellectual property, or so, and also sometimes the advantage is maybe too gradual. So it's not like a huge innovative step where there is a huge value creation. The value is more in the environment than monetary. And then we have also see this is very difficult to transfer and put into action. Can you comment on these experiences?
To me, that sounds more or less like a business model innovation. So it's not the technology per se that is the innovation, but the model, how the knowledge is used and put into action to create economic benefit. Hard to comment on the transfer side, but business model innovation is a good concept that's more and more popular, and Bolt is a business model innovation, right? And it works perfectly fine, and business model innovation is usually also scalable in that sense that it's at high potential for venture capital. So from my point of view, fantastic. There just needs to be the entrepreneurs who want to do it. But from a tech transfer side, not my area of expertise, sorry.
Publishing itself, it's not very bad. Just fill in patent application in advance, and the publication may become a marketing tool for the technology.
Especially in certain topics, just like health and so on. All right. Well, I think we are slowly heading to the end of this conference. I would like to thank our speakers. Olivia first.
One quick
question,
thing.
Yeah, comment.
Who
please?
had the example with the spin-offs was mentioned during the first presentation. There was quite a lot of spin-offs were created in green tech, and the venture funds, you had an ecosystem developed. She left.
Ah.
What a shame. I
Was
wanted
it
the examples
break here?
for
Okay.
Yeah, Christophe from the Danish Technical University. So in Denmark we have some moderate-sized private funds that sponsor green transitional projects all the way from research up to company formation and venture building. So like we have the Novo Nordisk Foundation, who has formed a green impact venture studio, launched last year. We have the Willem Foundation, which has done a Power to X special cohort across all universities, so give 4 years full salary for a team to mature beyond the TL4 limit that we normally work on, with the intention of spinning out, so before there's a company. And this creates like a platform of projects that grow beyond what we have of funding locally in Denmark. So they raise 7.5 times more than what they are put in initially from these non-profit funds. And one concrete case is a decentralized fertilizer production, where you use sustainable energy or renewable energy to capture carbon and turn it into a fertilizer. It's only price competitive in non-infrastructure regions, because fertilizer is cheap to pump, right? But they managed to get funding from Breakthrough Energies. They got the Willem Foundation, and so we're talking around 4 million euros before even leaving the lab, right?
Just saying, if Breakthrough Energy invested, then the impact on climate carbon emission reduction for that project must be at least 1% from global. So it's a really great venture. Yeah.
Yes.
Cool.
Okay, thanks a lot. Yeah, I also learned that KT jobs are more difficult than VC jobs. This is what I understood from you. And I'm not surprised, I'm not really surprised. And we heard something very interesting also about the procurement. And I think this is something all the SMEs, all startups and all spin-off request. More than public subsides, they would like some, of course, public buying from their products and services. So again, thanks a lot, Olivia. So we are watching you again, and thanking you for taking the effort of being online. I know it is not easy talking to in the void, but we were very interested, and so thanks a lot, Vida, as well. Okay, and thanks a lot, of course, to all the speakers. And so we are now heading to the final drinks, and we can give a big applause for them. Yes, thank you.